Are we live? Finally. Yay. Oh my word, you've no idea how many times I have been trying this. It wouldn't give me the go live. It just wouldn't give me go live. So now I'm live. I hope people pop in and I can see I've got one person in. Thank you. Hi Anne. Hello. Oh my word. YouTube has been stressful today for everybody. So this is going to be the project that we're doing. Hi, Mary. Hi, Karen. Yes, I'm live at last. Sorry, you must see. I should do a screenshot of how many tabs I've got open trying to go live because it kept killing my live stream, or it would just go round and round in circles. Anyway, I'm here. I unfortunately now don't have Tiffany's link underneath my video, unfortunately, because it wouldn't let me do any of that. So, but let's get going. I'm going to move my keyboard out of the way now because now I don't need that. And welcome to my hop. Thank you, Tiffany and Karen, for including me in this. And I hope you all really enjoyed Finnabear's live stream about her journal. That was just amazing, watching her create, kind of like an insight into her brain. So what I've decided to do is to recreate these folders. Now, I originally created them using one of Tim's worn folder covers, but firstly, we're all in lockdown, so we can't go shopping. Secondly, I think he's actually discontinued them. So this was a class that I taught 6 years ago. Well, it all started because I entered creative chemistry, not creative chemistry, Tim's book, number 3, Compendium of Curiosities. Linda Ledbetter used to run challenges, and I entered this book into a challenge and created it for the challenge, actually. And so I've used mostly Tim Holtz products on here. In fact, all Tim Holtz products. But since then, a whole lot of products have come out because this is 6 years old. And I've got these on my desk so I can show you exactly the same techniques, but in different colors, because a lot of people don't like brown. I'm in Tim's camp. I know that his first 6 colors of distress were brown. And I really like vintage. So this really speaks to me. But just because I'm working in brown today, because yes, I'm going to work in brown, doesn't mean that when you guys work, you have to create in brown. So here's exactly the same concept, just slightly different elements, but in blue shade. So I'm going to put these on one side and show you how you can create a folder without having one of Tim's covers. So this is just a ring folder, a ring binder, a normal A4 one that people get for their kids, for their schoolwork, for yourself, for your office work. And it's just a cheap cardboard cover. What you can also do are use your lever arch files. So this is a very old lever arch file, so old it's even rusting. It's got natural rust and patina going on, which is quite fine. It doesn't matter because the kind of things I'm going to put in here will either be in sleeves or I'm going to age them and make them look rusty anyway. So added rust, that's perfect. You can see I've given it a coat of gesso, and I have just cut down a standard lever arch file. So those are your options, and especially as we are now in lockdown, just go and look and see what you've got. You might even have some hanging around that you were going to throw out. And I'm going to use a guillotine, but you could use a craft knife and scissors. I don't suggest that you use a trimmer. It's a bit thick for that. I don't think this will fit on the screen, but you'll get the idea of what I'm doing. I have marked it off here because I want my folder to be a finished 7 and I think it's 1/4. So I've marked it on my guillotine to chop off, and here we go. I've got to stand up for this. Here we go, doing the one side and chop off the other side. And then these bits that you chop off are actually really great to die cut later. And I have marked, now it'll fit through my guillotine, I have marked where I want the top to come off. There we go. And and we've almost got a little teeny tiny folder. So this is a great way. Where's my mark? It's up at the top. This is a great way to reuse stuff that you have around the house, and you can make it any size to fit whatever you prefer. So I have my folders all to the same size, and when I create mini albums, I make sure that they all are the same height and they are all the same depth, so that when they are sitting on my shelf, I have a uniform look. Often when I create my own mini albums, they have broader backs. So for example, when I did a class with Finnabear a couple of years ago, I created my own mini album with all my photographs in, and it's really rather fat, but it is the same size. So when it's all sitting on the shelf, it looks rather neat. So how did I create this look? Well, what I did is, so it doesn't matter what color you start with, you can cover it with gesso. So I'm not going to bore you with painting it with gesso. I am going to just jump to the next step so you can pretend that I've used gesso. And what brand of gesso did I use? Well, it really doesn't matter. I'm living in Berlin, but I come from South Africa. And when I moved a year ago, I bought with me tons and tons of products that I already had. Because I was a teacher there, I had lots of big jars of things. You can use Finn's gesso, you can use Tim's gesso, you can use golden gesso, you can use any gesso that you have in your stash. And in actual fact, to show you the next part of the technique, I'm going to carry on with this album, which I was going to do something else on, and I've got some die cuts in the background, but those for this don't really matter. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use some tissue paper, standard tissue paper that you can get in the shops that you would normally put gifts in. And I'm going to just chop this in half because I really only need half for this. And I did this process both on the inside and the outside of my journal. And what I did was you take your paper, and it doesn't matter that it's got these creases in. Why? Because, well, you're going to do this. Scrunch it all up and open it up. So you have that sitting ready on one side, and then you are going to take your gel medium, and again, I'm using a South African brand, which most of you won't know, so it doesn't really matter. And I'm going to give a good coat of gel. This isn't runny gel. It's not. So Finn has her thin gels and her thick gels. This, I would say, is probably along the lines of the thick gel, and it's neither matte nor gloss. It's kind of somewhere in between. But for this, it doesn't really matter, because what we are trying to do is create a textured background, because after we've applied this and we've dried it, we are going to be applying Tim's Distress Paint. If you don't have Tim's Distress Paint, you can use just normal acrylic and dilute them and put them on, or you could use the Stamperia sprays. You could use Finn's liquid acrylics. Remember, guys, you can just shop your stash, see what you have at hand. Okay, so now I'm just using the light to see that I've got a nice coat of gel everywhere. And I'm going to pop this on all wrinkly like this and squish it down, because you actually want the wrinkles. So I've got my other hand underneath and I'm pressing down so that I have all these wrinkles. So you would carry on and you would work your way around your whole album and you would do the inside. Okay, so it's as simple as that. You can even use tissue paper that's come out of when you bought your shoes, for example, because that's already crunched. So you don't need perfect tissue paper for this. Okay, so step 2 is to let this dry. It's preferable to let it dry. You can sit and heat gun it. That is also entirely up to you. If you live in a sunny place, you can Yes, I'm doing the Steampunk project. So if you live in a sunny place, you could leave it outside to dry. Obviously, that would help. So yeah, I have one that I have prepped for you. This cover was yellow, and you can see that I have got my tissue paper inside and out. And how I find the easiest way to get rid of all these bits on the outside is not with a pair of scissors, because I can't get close enough. I'm going to use some sandpaper. And all you do is you literally run the sandpaper along the edge like this, assuming, of course, that you have glued it really well to the edge, otherwise it might lift. And you literally sand away the excess. And this way you get a perfect edge. So I'm going to do it on the front, and I'm going to do it on the back, and get rid of all my excess. So it helps if your gesso has been particularly thick and your gesso has made blobs on the ends of your file or journal cover at this stage, because it's gone from being an office file to being a journal cover. And so you just rub along. It can get a little warm on your fingers, so just be careful. So I'm doing the front and I'm doing the back. And there we go. This one needs a little bit more. Right. So now I've got rid of that side. This side. So this is kind of a dual purpose thing, because I'm not good with getting really close with scissors, because you've got the angle of the blade of the scissors. I find that that gets in my way. So, but this really does have to be dry. If you try and do this process without the without it being dry, it just tears it. It just goes like mush. Okie dokie, so we're almost done with that stage. There we go. Didn't even take that long. I can just tidy up there a little bit. Perfect. Okay. Right. Now that we have all of that done, I'm going to use my distress paints. And so what I've discovered is when you apply the distress paints, they leave these little circles. And this morning when I was preparing for this, my doorbell rang with my neighbor dropping something off. And I quickly ran to the doorbell before I sprayed it with water. So I have got a couple of little spots. So try not to answer your phone or get a few distractions while this part is happening. And something that I always teach, whether it's in my acrylic art classes or working with these, I know Tim says it doesn't matter, and quite frankly, it doesn't. You can dot with lots of different colors, but I like to work from light to dark, okay? Simply because if you, and I just need to get this one going, if you go with your nice pale cream into your brown, well, you're going to get brown on your, sorry, I'm having to work with my hand underneath because I have got these. Obviously, if you've got Tim's lovely flat worn covers, you don't have to be doing this. And you can put something underneath it, but I didn't think ahead. Okay, so I'm putting all my, this is antique linen. I'm putting down the antique linen first. Oh yes, the spots. Yes, it looks like chicken pox, the spots. It's totally this. So one has to work quite quickly, and you can even start spraying quite soon. The trick is to get the water going quite quickly so that you don't get these chicken pox spots. especially with the darker colors. It's really obvious. I have got a little bit of a trick that I'm going to show you just now with how to get rid of the chicken pox spots, but or measles. And I try and put it kind of evenly. I think I might need a little bit more of this. I think I left the lid off earlier, so it's not squeezing out as much as I would like. There we go. I'm getting enough paint now. Having to just be a little bit more vicious. What you can do, which won't work right now because it'll go out of shot, is you can actually slide your cover. Now you see I've got it dirty because I broke my own rule by putting my light on after my dark. And now I'm not actually going to put in the walnut stain. I'm going to put gathered twigs. Walnut stain goes a little bit green. I have got the walnut stain on my table, but it goes a little bit green. Or could it have been gathered twigs? We will see. Gathered twigs also looks like it's got a hint of green going on here. But definitely walnut stain has a bit of a green base. Okay, I'm going to spray this now so that I don't get the chicken pox, because I want it to start activating while I just put my black around the edge. Going to try and deactivate the chicken pox. I wish we could do that with this flipping virus. Okay, so here goes my black. I always put my lighter colors on the inside and my darker colors around the outside because it just frames it and helps to visually close something off. So, right. Bouncy, bouncy, bouncy. You're watching everything bounce. Right. So now I'm going to add a little bit more water, and you can see where the water has hit already. It's already starting to activate. You don't want to drown this, okay? Because, yeah, well, that's not great either. So I'm just going to hold it flat, and then I start with my finger, and I just help it into those grooves and cracks. And this is where I try and get rid of the chicken pox. I find it happens more if you have it on a porous surface, because then it soaks straight into that paper. So if you're doing it in an art journal, the paper definitely makes a difference as to whether you get these chicken pox spots or not. So you'll notice I'm fiddling around in the middle, trying to avoid the black at this stage. And you can just evenly try and blend your colors a little bit. Now I'm going to start going into the black and making sure that my black gets to the edge. Okay, now I start bringing the black in. And always with these colors, as with most acrylics, they dry lighter. So what you see is not what you're going to get. And I prefer, if I can, to let this dry naturally, because I find I get a better effect. I find if I heat gun it, a lot of the magic just doesn't really happen. It's going to help some of the black to spread across there. Okay, so that's where I'm going to leave that. So that, okay, you guys have got a lot of light shine there. So you can see that I've now got my paint on evenly. Again, I've done a bit of what my husband calls a cooking show. And I'm just going to take my, actually, I'll leave that there. I'm going to pop this behind me on top of 2 jars and leave it to dry nice and flat. Excuse me a second while I just dive behind myself. Okay. Ta-da! That's what it looks like when it's all dry. So this is the one that I did this morning when my neighbor called. And yes, I have got a few spots, but I'm going to be covering it with a whole lot of stencils and things. So I'm not really worried about that. And on the inside, instead of doing spots, what I did, well, instead of doing so much color, I took a baby wipe and I applied I moved the color around and I just softened it a little bit so that the inside was slightly different to the outside. I do have this on my blog with step by step. My blog is Bella's Scrappin, no G, space, .blogspot. I will alter all the information at the end of this and I'll pop it in there. There is a link to how I created the first ones. Of course, I used all of Tim's stuff. And as I said, today I'm going to be changing things up a bit because Finn's fabulous waxes were not available back then. So today, instead of using Tim's bronze paint, I'm going to use Finn's rich copper. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to rub it over the black because the black looks terribly black at this stage. And this is now going to pick up all that wonderful creasing and crunching that you guys did, well, that happens from the tissue paper. So this is why I love to add the tissue paper, because it's quite flat and it allows me to work on top, but it gives me still a wonderful texture to build on top of. And I like to fold it and get some going on the hinges. Get some in there and move across. So, right. And you can bring as many colors as you like in. I'm just trying to stick to a vintage color palette. So yeah, because I find if I gesso something, I often have the brush strokes of my gesso, which sometimes I do intentionally to pick up later with exactly what I'm doing now. But then I would do what's called cross-hatching. I would put it on at different angles like this. So now I've got some lovely copper everywhere. I need some more down the hinge. Now I'm going to add some stencil work. And I just need a tissue. The waxes are permanent when dry. Yes, so if you leave them for a little while, they will be permanent when dry. And oh, gravity sucks. There goes something on the floor. I'm going to use the measured. You can see how old these are. These were before Tim stopped doing names on his things. And I'm going to use some of the black paint. So now when people stencil, and especially as this is not an even surface, actually that's my one. So this one is damaged and old. So when this one's finished, I will just swap nozzles. I'm going to put some paint over here on my craft sheet, and I'm going to use a pad, an applicator tool, and just get some on. Not too much, because the nice thing about this is then it doesn't bleed through your stencil. The other thing I'm going to do is try and see if I can find my masking tape, which when I tidied up my desk is now no longer on my desk. Oh, that Bermuda Triangle. Okay, so much for masking tape. I will have to use some washi. And I'm just going to protect this piece of my stencil over here because I don't want it going through, and I'm lining this up with the edge of my hinge. And I'm going to dab it through like so. I just find that paint goes on really well onto paint. And if you haven't got it absolutely perfect, well, that doesn't really matter. It's just building layers. Ah, Mom to the rescue with masking tape. Too late, she cried. Thank you. There we go. Almost done. Oops, it shifted slightly. Let's just see if I got everywhere. That's looking good. Okay, let's line that up again. Thankfully, I used to do screen printing, so lining these things up is not impossible, and I need more paint. And line that up. There we go. Get a bit more in there. Finish that off. Okay, so now I have that down. I'm going to add some filler dots, and I love this dot fade because it's there but it's not there, and I'm going to add random filler dots all over my cover. Now, when I did the back of my original, which is now buried, of course, on the floor under everything else. So this is the back of the original using Tim's stencils. So I first started off with it there. And of course, it's just a narrow stencil. But I wanted to finish this off. And I discovered if you turn it round, you have the 3 of this clock and the 5 of this clock, and you can actually finish it off. So this clock and that clock are identical, but they're just in different places. So that's how I managed to get more than just the narrow stencil over here. Okay, so, but for today, because I don't need a whole lot of clones in my studio, I suppose I could give it as a gift. I've decided I'm going to raid my new stash of stencils, and I'm going to use my Stamperia Capture the Moments, or I might use my artist one. So I'm going to get those out. And I've just got these in a normal flip file for storage. I just find it's the easiest way to store them. Now, this one is the mixed media stencil, and it's really nice and thick, but the other one is quite thin. So I'm going to add this guy on the back of this stencil over here. And again, yay, thanks Mom. I'm going to use masking tape where I don't want the wording to come through. So that's how I protect the rest of my picture. And what you can also do, which is why my stencil looks so dirty, is I have used archival ink through here in my stencil. And again, I've used it with an applicator tool. So I'm going to pop some more paint down there. I'm going to grab some paint on here, and I'm going to start at the top, and I'm just doing a light swirling motion with some pressure, and there I go, moving it again. It's using far more paint than I thought, because I think that this is absorbing it. Okay. The trick is not to get your applicator tool too wet, because otherwise it will ooze underneath where you don't want it. Okay, I think I've got my guy going. Yep, perfect. Okay, so I have him on my back cover, and then I'm going to add, so that my back cover and my front cover and everything links up, I'm going to, sorry, I went out of screen. I get carried away. I forget that you're there. So busy happily playing on my desk. I'm going to add some of this dot on this side. Okay, so now I have got that stencil in. I've got some of my dot fade in. I've got dot fade here, and instead of the clocks, I've decided to have this guy. Now I'm going to stencil on the inside, and I think I want this saying here about artists and art. Right, so I'm just quickly going to have to move over. Make sure you guys can see. Stay in screen. Whoops, did I just hit my desk so hard you guys all went for a ride? Okay, so I'm going to start at the top. And this says artist is a person, or a person who creates paintings or drawings as a profession or hobby. So now with a dryish one, I'm pressing quite hard because I want the lettering to be nice and crisp. And I'm doing this at this stage before I add any fancy bits on the front, because otherwise it's going to be too bumpy. Okay. And I've got half an hour left, so we should finish this. I'm going to add this texture that they've got going down the side, because I rather like that, and these splats. That's the nice thing about these stencils, is it's one finished thing. Okay, now just to try and hold it still for one last bit down at the bottom here. And you could use more than one color, but okay, ta-da, done. And then just because I like it, I'm going to put this one in the back. Enough paint. Do the splat, do the sun rays. Let them fade out, getting darker at the bottom. So where the rays are quite close together, I want it quite dark. And here I'm going to have it lighter. Yay, perfect. Okay, so now I've done my inside, I've done my back, I've done my front, and now time to pop this out of the way. Close that. I'm going to put this clock. Now this is a die by Tim Holtz. It's a steel rule die. I always glue my labels onto my dies, just so I find it easier than trying to keep them in their boxes with their packaging. And so I just find it easier to keep it like that. So this is the die that I have used. And I'm going to pop that on one side, because this time I'm going to go with, and this I have pre-prepared in case this isn't dry, I'm going to use Finnabare's rust pastes. And I particularly like the texture that she has in these three. So now I need a brush, just a little brush. And I'm going to start. So what I've done is it was just gray cardboard, and you could have used the leftover pieces from your offcuts. And because I don't like seeing the gray once I've finished painting it. In fact, I haven't done a very good job there looking from this angle. I very carefully go in each little piece of the dye and color it just with normal acrylic paint. This was burnt sienna, just as a base. And again, that's a South African brand, so it doesn't matter what brand. You could even mix a brown using your red, yellow, blue. And I'm going to randomly add this lovely textured rust base all over. You could, of course, cover the whole thing in the rust texture, but I just have opted to not. And you've got to make sure that the rust texture actually sticks to your project. I quite often find it wants to just stay on my brush. So I'm going to make it stay. Okay, so now I've got the red on. I'm going to grab a little bit of the brown and mix it in. Rust is very kind of all over the place. There's no recipe for what rust should look like. I mean, I have taken photographs of rusty things. I think it's hilarious. We spend our lives trying to not have rust on our cars, rust on our windows, rust anywhere, and then we take a perfectly good piece of cardboard and we try and make it look like rust. So now I'm going to take a little bit of the yellow. There's very little yellow in rust, so I know it looks like I'm messing in my pot. I am, but I'll clean that up later. And as Finn said earlier, just check your paints, add water to them, or there was something else that she said you should add to them. I'm going to go back to her video and listen to that again. Okay, so now I've got a nice rusty, crusty, I don't know if you can see that, the texture, but a nice rusty, crusty clock. Okay, pop my brush out the way, close these up. And just for fun, I'm going to take so that it matches. And this is why I pre-prepared one, because that's not going to be dry enough for me to rub all over. I'm going to add some of this rich copper to this. And for me, it also adds to the real look, that maybe underneath there somewhere was some real metal. Okay, just a little bit here and there, because you want it to link up with your cover. Perfect. Okay, and I've just used one of these are Tim's Ideology buckles, but they aren't always the easiest things to come by. So for this one, I just used a normal haberdashery buckle that I ran through with a brad. It works just the same. So I've set this one up with a brad, and I'm going to have it half off my canvas. Sorry, I've been working on canvases all week. I'm going to have it half off my project like this. So I'm going to just snip it now. And this is why I love Tim's scissors, because they are so strong. They can just snip. Perfect. I like that. Okay, because this is then going to wrap around. So now I just need to be careful where I put this so that it doesn't go over his face, because it didn't matter when I had clocks. It could go over his face. Oh, well, it could go over the clocks. But here I want this to go around and not be over his face. So I'm going to glue that with some glossy accents and pop that in place. And my glossy accents is, okay, so here's my one with the pin. So what I've taken to doing is putting a pin attached. Is this one working? No. Pin down its throat. And of course, the problem is you always push the problem back into the jar. I usually take it off with a pair of pliers and push the problem back out the other way. But there we go. That's working now. And for good measure, I'm putting it on all the thick bits. And especially on my brad that is holding my ribbon. And this is ribbon from South Africa, from a lovely shop called Ebony and Ivory. And so I want it up there. Okay, so I have my clock down, and I give it a good pressure using a tissue or roller towel or something, because where the glossy accents bleeds out, it will be, thank you, it will be quite shiny. And I don't really want shiny on here other than where I've made it shiny. Okay, so now I need to adhere my tape. Excuse my great big arm across there. I'm going to pop, where's the beginning of this? My tape right across there. And I do this, I start off here. It'll need to be closed because otherwise it won't close. Is that straight? So hard to see when you're doing things for camera. Snip. Okay, I have 10 minutes left. We should get this done. Okay, that looks horribly skew. Let's just see. No, it's fine. Yay. Okie dokie. Ah, started from that side. Okay, and again, I'm going to close it so that it will bend, because I have found otherwise, if I do it with it open, then it doesn't want to bend. Great, because now that can concertina up and it's fine. Now I'm going to add my knob. And this comes with a screw. And I think I will have, instead of having it over here, because then what I'm finding is that it's making my books, because I've got, for this one, I've got it here and I've got it there. I'm going to add it, I think, at the top over here. And for that, I'm going to need my crocodile to make the little hole. And let's just see, where do I need it? Round about there. Maybe I can get it in a little bit further without it interfering on the inside. Right. So I'm going to pop my little faucet handle. I don't know what you call these things. Yes, faucet knobs. Pop it on there. Okay, so now when it's on my shelf, I can pull it out by that. And I have die cut myself some cogs and gears. And they are currently lurking in my Bermuda Triangle. And I discovered that this guy fits really nicely in there. So I'm going to pop him in there. And hopefully my glossy accents is still behaving itself. Yay, which it is. I find if I lie it on its side, it doesn't block while I'm using it. That was a tip that Tim said once, and generally, rule of thumb, it does behave. So I'm going to put that like that in there. And again, I'm going to use a tissue. Okay. And snip off the excess. And I'm going to start placing some of these guys. Now, I do want to have one of these tickets. And I think I want Hope, because I have Hope do this. Sorry, just grabbing this off screen. I do have Hope that this Corona mess will be over soon. So now I want to age it a little bit, so I'm going to scrunch it up. And I know these are discontinued, but Tim has just come out with a whole lot of new tickets. And there are stamps you can use and make your own tickets. And now I need my applicator tool that's on the floor. And I'm using Vintage Photo. And I'm just going to clip the creases and things that I have now created in there. I want to put that there. And I think I also want to have another one, because what do I want? Live, soar, love, wish, hope, trust. I think we'll have I trust. I trust that all of this will come to an end. There we go. Because I'm going to have that on the back and scrunch it up. And age this one also. There we go. Because I want that over here. Glossy accents. And I'm going to do it on the bend while it's bent. Because otherwise, again, if you try and do this straight and then you try and bend it, it's not going to be your friend. Yeah, if you have the blank tickets, you can make absolutely anything. Okay, so now this one that I want to put over here, I'm going to put inside one of these. And I've got a silver thing over there. So, oh, there go all my brads. Catch them, catch them, catch them. There we go. I'm going to put them in the lid. And I'm going to pop this on here. Okay. So I'm going to pop some glue on the back there. Pop my hoop in there and hope that I'm straight. Okie dokie. I can see a little bit sticking out, so I'm going to shift it down. There we go. Now I get to see the number more. And now normally you would apply this with your these guys, brads. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just fake it. I'm going to pop them through and I'm going to bend it this way. And I'm going to pop it through. Go away. And is that one the same color? Yeah. Got my two silver ones. And again, glossy accents. So I'm going to glossy accent these guys in place. Over there, down there, around there, up there. And put my hope up there. Okay, so now I'm going to pop some of these around the place. How many minutes have I got left? 3 minutes left. 3 minutes and counting. And quickly, I'm going to add. What have I got? No, I don't want those. I've been in the haberdashery. I don't sew. I don't sew at all. But I go to the haberdashery place for poppers, press studs, all these kind of things. And every time I go back, they say to me, so what did you make? Art is what I say usually. So I'm going to stick one of these in the middle here and a couple of them around. And we're almost done. You can keep adding whatever you like. I've got some more cogs and gears and things that I will add on, and I think I want a sentiment, and then I'm done. So encourage your hopes, not your fears. I think we'll have that. Word band. Because that just goes with our theme, and I'm going to glue that on over here. And again, I'm using glossy accents. And I'm done. So there we go. Stay. Sit. You can see on my original that I have little half pearls and things, which is probably what I'll add off camera. But there we go, people. Even though we started a little bit late. So you're moving on to Tiffany now. And I'm sorry, due to me doing a million attempts to get live, I don't have Tiffany's address underneath me. But please look for Tiffany. If somebody could find Tiffany, that would be awesome. So hope you enjoyed that, guys. See you all soon. Bye. Okay,